Welcome to the TAF HUB. My name is Mariama Kuli, and this is another exciting episode that we are really happy to be back on. Remember, this is a platform created by TAF Africa Global to educate you on land issues and everything that you need to know in land business, and of course, solutions to the problems that we are faced with. Welcome, Mr. Njai. How are you today?
Thank you very much, Mariama, and again, welcome to the TAF HUB. Today we have a very important guest, the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Lands, Regional Government and Religious Affairs. We cannot have a guest more important than him.
Yes.
As we talk about lands, as we talk about real estate development, housing, and everything related to development in this country.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. My name's Buba Sanyang. I currently work as the Permanent Secretary 1 at the Ministry of Lands, Regional Government and Religious Affairs.
What is the mandate or responsibility of the Ministry of Lands and Regional Government, focusing on the land component of the ministry?
The ministry is mandated to manage effectively and judiciously land and land resources in this country by way of doing proper planning and land use plans.
Into two areas, which are the state lands area and the region's lands area.
Yes.
Can you please elaborate in detail?
Yes, thank you very much. This is very important as it will enable people's understanding as to what kind of administration administered the area you are under. The state land area is that of the Combo South, Combo North, Combo Central, and we have the KM and Banjul. These are state land areas. And state land area, what we mean is the land is administered and, in effect, owned by the state, and the state give that power to, or delegate that power to the users by giving them certificate of occupancy, where they occupy the state land, and then also eventually lease to them. But the state has the control over that land, and it is administered by the Minister of Lands. If we go to the land regions area, we have what we call the district authorities. This is the district as a head. The head of the district is the chief, but then the governor serves as the chair to this district authority. They administer the Lands Regions Act by way of using their structures, that is the chiefs and alcalis, to allocate land in that area. But at the same time, the minister signed their leases, and the minister also reserved the right by the Constitution and also the Act to declare any part of that region as a state land. So, in effect, a state land area is purely administered by the minister, and the lands regions area is administered by the district authorities.
You've demarcated the state land as Combo South, Combo North, yes. KM. But to be more elaborate, when you say Combo South, probably there are people, who identify more of the towns and the villages.
Yeah.
Can you just try and demarcate for us by naming, where these boundaries are? Would you be able to do that?
Yes, it's not. If you go to the up to Mandina Bar, is within the Combo Central, which is the limit of the state land area. Coming down to Brikama, going that way up to Gunjur, coming out to Brufut, down to KM, Serakunda, and also Banyun. These are the areas that falls within the state land area. Just
for the sake of the listeners, because people drive to get to these areas, so you can just say all the way up to Mandinaba.
Yes.
So everything beyond Mandinaba falls within the authority of the district authority.
Exactly.
So the state land is from Mandinaba all the way to Banjul.
Exactly.
But again, further, we do understand that in Banjul, there is also freehold.
Yes, and I think this is a very important term that we need to clarify. People tend to confuse what they call freehold and customary own. People believe that the land that is not leased is called freehold, but that one is called customary land. Freehold is a special title that has been administered by the colonial masters to most of their properties because it's a very powerful title. A freehold title is very powerful. Even the state cannot just enter. You can transact a freehold title without the approval of the authorities. So that is how powerful it is. And it is very difficult to change. You cannot even change the original owner. If it is in Mr. Njai's name, even if that land is sold to me, it has to remain Mr. Njai's name. If it is sold to somebody. But this is a way of the colonial masters protecting their properties within a particular country, such that their name will remain on that property and it will be protected. So in doing it for themselves, they decided to do it for some people in Banjul so that it will not be seen as they are trying to only protect their own interests. So freehold, in effect, is a special title. It's a special title that is given out by the state to people, but it's very powerful because you cannot change the ownership unless and until the state desires. So that has to go through a process. And also it doesn't pay land rent. You don't pay land rent on freehold properties. So it was a compromise title that was being issued by the colonial masters at the time to make sure that their lands are protected. Because in the State Land Act, it is stated that non-payment of land rent is an automatic entry. The minister can take your land. So if they attach land rent to the freehold, it will now enable the state to enter into the property. So now the land rent aspect is taken out, so it makes it difficult for even anybody to just take that property, even if it is not performing or it is not, the state requires it for something else.
Further, can I just then state, or can you confirm that there are no freehold within certain areas? Because if it was given out by the colonial masters, would you say that the freeholds are only within a certain area or otherwise?
Yes, it's mostly in Banjul. In KM, we have few of them.
Okay.
But then it's mostly in Banjul and what we used to call Kanifing district, I don't know, KUDC, I don't know. That is the limitation. Before Kanifing was brought in, it was limited to Bakau area and the Serakundas and the like. But that area, we have few of them. There are not many, but it's mostly in Banjul. Yeah,
mostly in Banjul.
And Georgetown.
Yeah, okay, Georgetown also.
Yes.
Okay.
Georgetown,
and also Denton Bridge area,
yes,
where some families have. I
yes.
understand that, that's freehold.
Yeah, sure.
So we can comfortably say that anything beyond the kind of thing going now to this new settlement, there is no freehold.
Exactly.
It's all state land.
Exactly. Except until and unless you request for it and the state want to give it to you, it has to go through a lot of process. It has to go to the National Assembly because it's a title that you are given a sovereignty of, because you will not get a revenue on it, and then you will not also have control over it as a state. So before you give it out, it has to go through a process, and that process include going to the National Assembly for them to check and give that. So it's a difficult title to acquire.
Yeah. But actually, it is so interesting that I want to just still stay on it.
Yeah. Right.
But would you are free to if you have the knowledge about this, because once you have a freehold, then it's with you forever and can be passed on to your family,
yes,
or whoever you want without the state coming in. So why would anybody want to do this?
It's just to have the luxury of changing the title without any cost on you, and also you don't pay anything to the state.
Okay.
Yeah, you just register the freehold. At the level of the councils, you might be paying your rates, but then the state, like the land rent that you pay to the state and other transactional fees, you are not obliged to do that. Okay. So it's sort of it's a way of freeing you from all those payments.
I see. Well then, In this time, so many people are trying to have access to a land or to have a land. How can you own one in the country, and what are the procedures involved?
Yes, this one is also very important. But from the first question, I said people confuse freehold and customary. I think maybe I need to talk a little bit about customary.
Customary land.
Yes, so that they understand
that's
the
fine.
context.
That's fine. Perfect.
Yeah, customary own these are properties that people inherit. And they own where they can transact at the level of the customary ownership, like a family own the land from their customary, they inherit it, or you buy it from somebody, then these are customary ownership. So that is not, people think that when it's not lease, then they call it freehold. So, but freehold is a special title, it's different from customary own. So coming to your question, land can be owned in this country in, I think, 5 different ways. The first one is you inherit the land from the rightful person. Inheritance, when we say, it doesn't necessarily mean that my father was farming on a farm that was my father borrowed from the giants, and then I just want to inherit that. I cannot inherit that. I have the right to use, but I don't have the right to own. That right to own have to be given to me by these giants to say, now we are giving you this portion permanently, I can use it, or they will say you can continue using it, but I cannot transfer that. My children cannot inherit that. I think this is where we have a lot of issues with people owning land. So the second one is when it is a gift. This is a gift from the rightful person. Like I said before, if I go to the Njaikunda family, I said, I don't have a place, they give me a land, and they are the rightful owner of that land, they give it to me, then I can own that land. And the third one is where I buy the land. I can buy the land from the rightful owner. In all these cases, it has to go back to the rightful owner. Either the person bought it, or he inherited it, or it was a gift to him. All these I can buy it from them, and then I can own that land. And then the other one is the state allocation, where the state gives you a land to own. That is normally in a state plan areas where you have layouts, they can give people for both residential, they can give it to you for institutional, industrial, agricultural, and so many other land uses. But this one, the state will give you the ownership. So these are the 4 ways, these are the 4 ways that you can own land in the country. And these are the only ways that you have to go through to acquire ownership and then also be able to transfer this ownership to somebody else.
When you want to buy land, you know the family is quite big, and there's quite a number of issues with this.
Yes.
Who takes authority? Who has control over the land? For example, the Sanyang Kunda family of, let's say, Gunjur. If you want to buy land and they say it belongs to the Sanyang Kunda, how do you go to the rightful owner? Because within the Sanyang Kunda, remember the family is so big. Who is given authority to sell that land?
Yes, thank you very much. This is another very important question, and it needs clarity for people. Most of the people get trapped in this by buying land from a wrong person, and at the end they will get themselves into problem. A family in the Gambian context and in African context in general, we have a family setup in a way that you are either a son, a father, a grandfather, and so on, so on, so on. I might be older than you, but you are a father, I am a son. Your decision outweighs my decision, even though my age is above yours. So this is the setup in our community. So when a land is to be sold, at that time, who are the fathers are what is considered. Those fathers will come together. Normally, they will have an elder who will be consulted. And then he will consult the fathers because they are the owners now. The throne has been passed on to them. They will look at it and then they will decide, because when they actually get it, they are the people who are going to share it. And then they will share it among the fathers. Sometimes they will bring in the sisters and also the sons sometimes if they are sharing. But if they are selling, these are the people that are normally contacted, the fathers. But the first thing to clarify is to work with the village head to first confirm that that particular family actually own the land in that area. And Mr. Buba, who is claimed to be engaging you or trying to negotiate with you, is actually the family head of that particular family. So these are two important things that we need to clarify with, especially the alkali, so that we have that confirmation that one, the person selling is actually the head of the family of that place. The second thing is that they own that land themselves, the Kabilo, or the family, so that it will not be seen that they are selling other people's land. That might come up to be a problem. So in the customary but there's one thing happening within the state land area, which is a normality, but the state tend to accept it and go on with it. In the state land area, in the actual sense and the actual implementation of state land area, there is no customary ownership, because now it has been taken from the customary ownership. It has gone through a process to become a state land. Now the right of the customary is their compensation. Whenever the state needs the place, the state should provide them compensation. But they should not have been allowed to trade on this land. So this is what creates a lot of problem within state land area. The government will come and say, we want to set up a layout here, and people will say, no, you cannot come to our land. But in the law books, the government has the right, because this is a state land area. And the state has gone through the process of taking it from you and becoming a state land. And also one thing very important here is people tend to think that the person in charge today should have been notified. But forgetting that the time that process was being done, it was my father who was the head of the family, and he was being consulted, or my grandfather who was the head of the family. He was being consulted, and then necessary arrangements were done at that level, at that time. So me coming to throne now doesn't necessarily mean that the state needs to consult me. They need to inform you that they are entering into that land and then whatever, so that the families who are affected could be compensated. But this is a non-enforcement of the State Land Act fully is creating most of these problems, because you call the place a state land, I own this, but yet you can cut part of it and sell. Then the ownership becomes a problem. So there is where we have most of these issues, where people tend to feel that the state is encroaching into them, when in effect, by law, they are the ones encroaching into the state.
But how can people avoid such situation in building on a state land?
It's the state to enforce the state land law. That's the only solution to stop people from building. But in actual sense, I think one of the questions is going to deal with that. What will people require to do actually a building in the first place? You will need to go through some documentations to get actually a building. So if you go through that documentation will have given clear that this place is actually a state land area. And if the state want to enforce that, if the state have interest there, what we call a reserve land and public places and the like, that the state reserve. But remember, the state has a responsibility. The state needs to provide for markets, it needs to provide for car parks, it needs to provide for graveyards, it needs to provide for road, it needs to provide for all these public spaces. But where is it going to get land from if it doesn't get a law that has to give the state the power to be able to enter into some of these lands and then be able to plan them for the betterment of everybody? So if the state cannot do that, then that means the state will not be able to execute some of those functions by providing those public spaces within. The ministry in these recent years, we were able to use some of the state lands acquired with us to provide certain public facilities within the communities, like graveyards. We provide graveyards by compensating the owners of those lands somewhere, so that the community can have a graveyard, and also markets. So these are all ways why the state needs to have that power to be able to provide those services to the public.
I still want to stay on this. I mean, because this is quite important. I mean, it's an area that is bringing a lot of misunderstanding, and issues are coming up on land ownership.
Right.
From what you've said, what I understand here is that the village head or the alcalde is the one who will verify ownership. And I mean, and then because we want to establish, for example, a buyer. When the buyer comes in, it seems quite complicated identifying who is the head of a family or who you deal with. So I think it should be some form of authority that should be given to somebody, like a stamp, so that the buyer, anytime he sees that stamp, he is clear that this is the right ownership. So in this case, because the family setup is difficult, within this family setup, you don't have stamps also, do you, to verify them?
No, the families don't actually have stamp for any land transaction.
They do have stamps?
No,
they don't have.
They don't.
So where does it come in? Where you know, it's some form of an authority. So once you see this, then you will at least be convinced that all the right process have been followed.
Yes, at the level we have the local authorities, that is the regional authorities, that is one, the alkali, and also the chief. These are authenticating bodies. At the level of the village, when you are buying any land, it must have been owned by somebody or a family. So the alcalo is the first point of call, because that's why we are insisting that at that level, the alcalo transfer, even though it's not part of the documentation process, but it is an important document at that local level to confirm, and the alcalo committing that this land that you are about to buy is actually owned by Mr. X, who is claiming to own it, and also, or is owned by family Y, who are claiming to be selling the land. So at that level, the alcalo will authenticate that. But we also want to advise people that when you are buying land, after the alcalo confirm, you must have to make sure that you get the land use clearance. This is very important. Often a time, people will do the transaction until everything is finished. Money has changed hand, money has been eaten. Now you want to do your documentation only to go to the authorities. They tell you, no, this place is not ideal. For one, maybe the land use you want to put it to is not ideal, or no, we have got an issue of somebody that owned this place before, or maybe this family, they have issues. That after getting the alcalo transfer, the person who is interested in buying this land should make sure that he goes to the physical planning office to make sure that he gets the land use clearance. The land use clearance doesn't confer ownership, but what it does is it clears you that you want to use this land for residential, it's ideal for residential. And during that process, you will go back to the alcalo, who will now confirm again your ownership with some witnesses, and then it will go to the district chief, who will also stamp to confirm. And then once those people confirm your local ownership, the physical planning office also will come up and say, yes, based on our planning, land use plan of the area, your place is within the area, the use you want to put it to, or you cannot use it for this, you have to put it to this, and until such time that use that you want to use it for is ideal, then you can change the use and then use it for that. So often the time, these people don't engage our office at the level of physical planning until the land is bought. Now you go to the physical planning, one they might tell you that, no, this place you cannot get residential there, and it becomes an issue. Or already we have got somebody's name in our, now that they are doing georeferencing, whereby if you own a land, they will take the coordinates and they will put this coordinate in their system. Then if I come back, I either identify the same land or part of that land If they put the coordinates of my land now and then check, they'll find out that Madam Colley I'm within her plot, or I'm occupying, now claiming part of her plot. Then they will tell me that we cannot process for you unless and until you clear with Madam Colley, and then know that that place, portion of her land that is already in our system, is now owned by you, so that we can clear you as well. So this has helped us a lot in terms of avoiding a double documentation for one plot, even though sometimes we have people selling to 2, 3 people, but at our level it helps us from avoiding double documentation. So I think the Office of Physical Planning should be consulted at the early stage, so that they capture this information, see in their system, and also you go to these local authorities and get all what you should get. If you get all that, then now your title of the occupancy level, your ownership is established, then you can go into the leasing process of your property.
I just want you probably to take us through procedural setup, let's say step by step.
Right.
First, the owner is the rightful owners, the family. 2, the alcalo. 3, physical planning for land use clearance. What is 4, 5? You don't need to elaborate, further, but just one by one. So anybody who's watching now will know that these are the steps that you need to take, in terms of land ownership.
Okay. The land process, land acquisition or documentation process or titling process, let me put it that way, has 2 stages. One stage is the documentation process, and the second stage is going through the leasing. The documentation stage, you have to get first, as I said earlier, that alcalo transfer that shows that the rightful seller is selling to you. Then once you get that, you go to the physical planning. They will give you a land use report for your clearance to clear the place, and then indicate that the use you want to use it for is ideal. Once you get that, you will go through the official transfer, what they call official transfer. You will go, that official transfer, the person handing over will sign, the person taking over will sign, there are witnesses. It will go to the chief, it will go to the alkali, it will go to the chief executive officer under the chairman of the area council, and then you will pay your capital gain tax, and then have that stage concluded. Then you will come now to apply for what we call the certificate of occupancy, and physical planning will provide you another land use report on occupancy. Once you process that, you get your occupancy. Now your documentation is completed. Now with that occupancy, you can apply for permit, and they will give you. Or you can move on still, you want to lease it, but occupancy can give you all the planning requirements that you need. You want to do a building, you can, with the occupancy, you can go and apply for building permit. You want to do a fence, you can go and apply for fencing permit. So what it will not do for you is, now that you want to use this compound as a mortgage, now you need to go further, to go and have it leased. Now this leasing process, you have to buy a form, and then now start the process of leasing. Now submit all the documents with the form you fill, and then this, because we don't have record of some of these ownership, then we have to put in place certain checks and balances. Even though at the level, the physical planning was involved in trying to clear the place for you, once you apply for lease, this file is sent back to physical plan to confirm their previous position. That if I was compromised as a technician on the ground, somebody would have picked it and said, oh, this place is for residential, you want to use it for institutional, it cannot go. Or it's an agricultural, you want to use it for residential. Or the land size should not be this because it's residential, it should have been reduced. Those kind of things will be looked into, and then it will go through the process, permit to lease. Once the leasing permit is given by the minister, it confirms and then approve your lease, then we will come to buy the indenture and the survey fees and the other things, and then they will provide your lease. But the documentation stage, I think that is the most important thing. You will get your transfer, your occupancy, and clear your clearance, and then you go in for leasing.
Thank you so much for coming on the TAF Hub. Until we come your way next week, remember to subscribe on our YouTube channel. The link is on the screen.